The complicated fight for social justice that became the driving force of the women's movement in the 21st century was, as Professor Nelson has suggested, often muddled. But if we look at a few of the most heated domestic issues, we can see how they linked with struggles for equality. Let's start with the Fight for 15, the campaign for a higher minimum wage for the poorest workers. About 2/3 of minimum wage workers in the United States are women. More than a quarter are African American women who support families on a single income. Many of these women work in the fast food industry. Others work as hotel cleaners, in child care, and as home health aides. Most work without benefits of any kind. Few get health care, paid vacations, or paid sick days. To support their families, about half of minimum wage workers rely on government-subsidized child care and health care, as well as on food stamps. Moving out of poverty is difficult because education beyond high school has become increasingly expensive. In a global economy that valorizes the free market and insists on personal responsibility, government subsidies have become more and more meager. Despite the rapidly increasing wealth at the top, poverty remains deeply entrenched in a quarter of all American families. When the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1937 set a minimum wage for workers, it recognized that working people could not effectively defend their own wages. Until the 1970s, rising federal minimum wage levels more or less kept up with the cost of living.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
But as austerity politics took hold in the 1970s and 80s, it fell back until today the minimum wage provides a wage significantly less than even a single individual, much less a family, can live on. By 2000, even 2 fully employed workers in minimum wage jobs could barely support their families without some sort of government subsidy.
My question is, being a single mom myself, that if my pay went up to $15 an hour, yes, it would be wonderful, but other problems would arise for me. Food subsidy would be cut, child subsidy would be cut. So I'd be making more, but I wouldn't make enough to replace the subsidy that I lost.
I am so glad. What's your name?
Sophia.
Sophia, thank you so much for bringing that point up. I think that's a very common thing that they bring up. Well, what about single moms? What about women of color? They're going to suffer. And it's our job to point out that women of color are suffering right now. This economy doesn't work for single moms. Single moms are struggling.
The dam broke around 2011 when poor people began to protest their low wages. Workers in the fast food industry began the campaign to raise the minimum wage in Seattle and then New York around 2012. They asked for a reasonable wage, fight for $15 an hour, and they got support from trade unions that took on the mission of protecting all workers. The campaign spread over the globe until poor workers in far-flung areas like Brazil and parts of Africa were also demanding a $15 wage. Municipalities and states were the first to succumb. But then some private companies, like Amazon, agreed to pay their starting workers at that level. This is a woman's issue. Women are probably 80% of the workers seeking a higher wage. But it's also a family issue, a community issue, and an issue of human rights, especially for children. We can make similar links around the issue of mass incarceration.
In the United States of America, 37% of African American children should not be living in poverty. In the United States of America, we should not be having more people in jail than any other country on earth, disproportionately Black and Hispanic.
In the late 20th century, legislation requiring incarceration for even small offenses relegated more and more African American men to the nation's prisons and jails. Analysts estimated that as much as 10% of the Black male population was incarcerated at any one time. This, too, became a woman's issue. It wasn't just that increasing numbers of Black women found themselves behind bars, but that the resort to incarceration instead of rehabilitation had devastating effects on families and communities. It left mothers without supportive partners, children without fathers, and whole communities victimized. Incarcerated people often suffer lifetime discrimination in employment and housing, and in many states, they lose the right to vote. Allied with the women's movement, the campaign against mass incarceration of African Americans drew national attention. Beginning about 2014, the prison population began to recede. And then there's the immigration question. Convinced without evidence that the U.S. was simply admitting too many immigrants and that many were of the wrong kind, the Trump administration increased efforts to deport those it viewed as illegal. Women's movement activists very quickly picked up and broadened the issue. They noted that, frightened by the fear of deportation, victims of domestic violence failed to report their abusers. Wage earners submitted to wage theft and violations of health and safety laws. Mothers refused to apply for welfare benefits lest they subject themselves or family members to investigation. When the administration cracked down on those coming over the nation's southern border, separating parents from their children, and depicting women and children as invading hordes, they drew coalitions of women and men, too, to denounce the inhumanity of the family separation policy and to advocate for more generous asylum policies. Women's issues had, in short, become human rights issues, and the tentacles of these issues spread everywhere one looked. Women took on the government's increasing propensity to allocate tasks to private contractors who could not be held responsible for conditions in shelters or prisons, or even in military campaigns in Afghanistan. Racism and gender discrimination seemed inseparably linked, a common cause to be fought in coalition.
This is what